Good morning. My name is Mark Matini. I have been asked by Behaviorists for Social Responsibility to share some information about a project that Behaviorists for Social Responsibility has been working on for about 6 years now, and that is the Matrix Project. Most thoughtful people in behavior analysis and behavior science agree that the world is in serious trouble at this point for numerous reasons. We have income and asset inequalities, extraordinary rates of incarceration in the US, war and terrorism, racial, ethnic, and religious strife, street and family violence, poverty, health disparities, and other forms of structural violence, neocolonialism, climate change. All of these, at least we have in behavior analysis long believed, are basically problems of behavior and or problems of cultural practices. If that's true, then one would think that ABAI, Applied Behavior Analysis, EAB, Experimental Analysis of Behavior, and CBS, Cultural Behavior Science, should have the potential to make some real change, to have some real impact in this world. And many young behavior analysts and some older ones over many years now have come to me and said, how do I get involved in doing something bigger or in doing something that addresses these issues that I am really concerned about? They'll often say, I've liked the work I've been doing. I've really loved, for example, doing work in autism, but I feel like I'm being drawn to do something more or something different. How do I do that? These problems are pretty significant, actually. There's a real question as to what exactly it is that we have to offer that is coming from our science. Despite the rhetoric that we sometimes use about how much we know about how to change everything behavioral, currently behavior analysts are generally ill-prepared to actually take action in most of the social and environmental issues that I mentioned in the beginning. And there are very few obvious paths. You don't typically hear someone operating in a scientific lab focused on climate change saying, oh, we need more behavior analysts here. They actually probably do, but they don't know it yet. It's to deal with some of these kinds of issues that the Matrix Project was developed. Now, the Matrix Project is not simple. The reason it's called the Matrix Project is because there are so many interacting and interconnected kinds of sectors that are going to be necessary if we're going to have more meaningful impact on these areas that I've been talking about. And so that brings up the question of what do we mean by sectors? Think about, for example, university behavior analysis programs are one sector. Students in those programs are another sector. University administration is another sector. But so are community agencies, so are churches that may be working in these areas, so are public health people in universities, but also out in communities. So what we're wanting is our people to be well prepared to go and partner with all those other groups, and we're wanting them to want us. We're wanting them to ask for more behavior analysts. So I'm going to begin with a few sectors that we've spent a fair amount of time looking at. We said, okay, we would like behavior analysis programs to have more content about social problems and about the kinds of cultural systems analysis that are necessary in order to do something about those problems. Okay, so that would probably be a step toward getting us out into the broader community and the broader world. And I am looking at notes periodically because there's a lot here. So one thing that would help, and this is true for all of our work with sectors, we're looking at what are the antecedents that would motivate that sector to do more of what we're asking them to do, in this case, to change curriculum. Well, one thing that would be helpful is if students were demanding this. One of the ways we got so many programs on autism is because both communities and students were demanding that kind of expertise. We want students to demand it. We also want communities, and that would involve multiple other sectors. That would motivate programs. And also, if other disciplines reached out to us and said we could use your help, that might be a motivating antecedent, right? Okay. But also, we want to try to make this easy. So there are resources that could be potentially in place that would make it easier for programs to adopt this kind of content. And that would include curriculum materials, like course units that would be relevant to certification, like bibliographies, like syllabi, and a whole range of other things. Course notes, for example, some people have found helpful. So just to jump ahead a little in the description, those actually are areas where BFSR has been doing significant work with the help of multiple volunteers to develop those bibliographies, those course units, those syllabi, and so forth. Now, if universities, based on that, do make those changes, would there be payoffs for them? Yes, and here we're looking at reinforcers, right? Some of the payoffs would be student satisfaction, would be advantages for student recruiting. And that is true. When people come to me and say, what programs should I go to if I'm interested in working on social and environmental issues? There are a small handful of programs that I recommend and that I have recommended to many people, and others have done the same thing in the field. So there are payoffs. There also are payoffs often with the university for encouraging interdisciplinary work, because interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary work is in general very highly, or are in general very highly desirable for universities. All right. So we know all these things might be helpful for universities, but now how do we get students to make that demand? Then we look at what are some of the motivative kinds of antecedents that would lead students, who would make it more likely, that would motivate students to make that demand. And so we went to the student sector in that case. And one of the things we found in the research, to the extent possible, everything we're doing in the Matrix Project is looking at available research. We need tons more. There's only so much information in these things, but we are digging for what's there. One of the things we found in the research was that like-minded, like-motivated verbal communities encourage students to take action in these kinds of areas. So therefore, student groups who are interested are committed to social environmental issues, human rights issues, and so forth. If we can encourage those to form, which then that becomes another sector, then it's more likely that students will be active in this, and it's more likely that they will go to universities. You begin to see that there are not only steps that come along, but also that universities can participate in developing those verbal communities. So we've got sectors crossing, often in multiple different ways. What my old stats professor used to talk about as a p-dimensional matrix, p being an unknown number. There are so many potential sectors that could contribute to the overall goal that we have of behavior scientists, behavior analysts participating more in social issues, human rights issues, environmental justice, and so forth. So we have done work in a number of sectors. I'm going to just read you a little bit of the list. We've done work in behavior analysis education programs, researchers, individual faculty, how they can contribute. Sometimes it's one key faculty member that makes the difference in advancing. Allied disciplines, public health, public policy, all the others that you can think of, many of which I mentioned earlier. Student groups, behavior analysis journals, Behavior and Social Issues, which is the journal that Behaviors for Social Responsibility have been affiliated with for 40 years, in fact, has expanded our readership and essentially our marketability by becoming an ABAI journal, therefore moving to working with Springer as a publisher and so forth. Also, BFSR has done special sections in some of the other ABAI journals, notably last year in Perspectives on Behavior Science, where we took a special section that was a full half of that issue with people from all around the world who are parts of our network, to some extent our movement, I suppose, to bring behavior analysis much more into positions of action, into places where we could really make a difference. And we can, in fact, really make a difference. Others are foundations, businesses, community-based organizations, government agencies, lots of sectors that could contribute to bringing us into the work that they are doing and helping us prepare to do that work, which is basically what the Matrix Project is all about. Another sector is practitioners, people who are out there not part of the university systems and so forth, but we can help practitioners find ways that they can volunteer, including in the Matrix Project, but in a lot of other ways. And we need volunteers to work with us on expanding what we can do in that case. Another sector is other special interest groups within ABAI, but also ABAI as its own sector. In recent years, there has been significant upward encouragement and even pressure on ABAI to look more broadly at social issues, at justice issues, and we're really seeing changes now. One thing is they welcomed bringing BFSR, the BFSR affiliated journal, Behavior and Social Issues, into ABAI. They also have the first book in the new ABAI book series is on behavioral perspectives on culture and communities, focused heavily on cultural analysis, cultural systems analysis. And also they have developed a certificate program. Now this is kind of cool because the certificate program, this is something that universities would apply to participate in. And they would make adjustments to their curricula in order to be eligible to do this, including cultural systems analysis, coursework, and some form of internships or activist work out in the broader community, working with people from other disciplines and more. We also have the Cultural Behavior Science, the BS, the CBS conference coming up from where I am now on the calendar in less than 2 months. And that's the first. We expect that there will be others as this work grows. This is the work of the Matrix Project. And there's a place for you in the Matrix Project. You can, whoever's showing you this probably can begin to connect you, but it's easy to find the materials on the Matrix Project on the BFSR webpage on the ABAI website. Also, you can find any of the planners or other active members of Behaviors for Social Responsibility who can link you up with us and help you decide where you might fit best. There's a good deal of written material already, including the course materials and so forth, on our website at BFSR. Take a look there, decide where your place is in all of this, and welcome. Thank you. This is Mark Mattini for Behaviors for Social Responsibility.